Okay, with those guidelines in mind, let's start looking at some examples. For example, here's a woman in an office. The clip itself is technically very good. It's evenly lit, it's well framed, it's just not very exciting. If we're trying to make something like an opening title, this just isn't going to cut it. So instead, let's add some lighting to it. One clip that might make a good lighting clip, again, is one of these soft edges clips. I'll play through it, and you can see it just has nice, subtle, slow, out of focus movement moving across the screen. If modes are not already visible in After Effects, press F4 to toggle the modes panel, and then choose a blending mode for your lighting clip. Now usually overlay is the very first mode I go for. It's a handy all-purpose mode. It's a good starting point, and you can play with other modes after this. You'll see there it's now added some highlights into the scene as well as some shadows to the scene. I'm going to press 0 on the numeric keypad to ram preview. It does take a little bit while to calculate a preview. We're going to skip that time in the future and just jump straight to the playback. Now look up in these corners. You can see bright areas moving across the back wall. And also you see some movement going up in this corner, shadows and lights. It's not distracting, but it just adds some animation to make the scene more interesting. The overlay mode also just adds kind of a nice filmic overexposure to this whole scene. Now when I see a clip that's predominantly white, another set of modes I started looking at are multiply and the burn modes. Multiply darkens the composite based on the values of the clip on top. So in this case, you'll see the whole scene gets darker. If I just go ahead and do a quick RAM preview, you'll see again that we have animated shadow and light going on in the back here. Multiply in itself is not a very exciting mode. It doesn't do any color shift. If you want something that has a little bit more zang to it, try something like color burn. Now you'll actually start to get some color shifts that look like dodge and burn techniques you might do in Photoshop. If the effect's too strong, press T to reveal opacity, and back off the opacity of your lighting clip until you have a nice subtle blend. So that's one clip. Let's go look at another one. This is a case of a clip that has a strong color cast to it, and also has some really nice animated movement to it. Now, as we know, orange tends to be a warming color, so applying this to the clip on top will help warm it up. I'll select its mode. I'll choose Overlay as my first shot. And you'll see it does add a strong color cast to this scene. If Overlay is too strong for my taste, I'll back off a little and use Soft Light, which is a more subtle version of that mode. RAM Preview. And you'll see that I've got, again, some nice light play going on in the background. It does look like there's some interesting lighting going on in the scene, but it's not enough to make it look like there's another graphic pasted on top of her head. If it's too strong, T for opacity, back it off a little bit, and just gets the amount of addition that you want. Let's RAM preview again, and you'll see the effect is more subtle now. It's a nice enhancement to the scene. Now this clip, which we saw earlier, is primarily black with some lighter highlights. Whenever you have a clip that's primarily black, the set of modes you want to look at are the ones that include Add and Screen. These basically add illumination to the scene. Black is no addition, white is a lot of addition. Screen is a little softer, Add is a little bit harsher, more blown out. We'll RAM preview this first at full strength, and you can see the motion and lighting that is adding to the scene, but it's a bit too strong. It's blowing out her face right here in the middle. So let's pause, move our time marker back to one of the worst areas, hit T to reveal opacity, and back it off until where it's just an enhancement now, rather than being something very noticeable and that damages the image. RAM preview again. And now we have a more subtle effect that lightens her face, rather than being something that's very glaring. And again, we could back off opacity even more if we wanted to. Now Add mode and Screen mode don't really shift the color of the image that much. If you want more of an effect, choose Color Dodge. This is the opposite of Color Burn. Color Dodge now will start to give us a little bit more of a color shift, a little bit more of a blown out sort of look. We'll go to full strength. We'll go to an area where her face is really burned out by the lighting. We'll back off the opacity to where now it's just an additive effect. It's not too strong. RAM preview. And now we'll see again that we just have something more subtle, some lightness, then some colored shadows going across your face. It's nothing too glaring or obvious, but it's a lot better than the untreated shot, which just had even lighting throughout the entire clip. No excitement, No interest, nothing to keep the viewer engaged. Let's go look at another example. Now here's some really stark footage of a person in prison. I'll just play it through so you can see it. One thing I noticed, besides the fact that again it's evenly lit and could maybe use some excitement, is it has a very strong vertical orientation. So I might want to choose a lighting clip that shares this vertical orientation. First, let's look at a clip such as this one. Again, we looked at this earlier. This was the sheets of light that we saw earlier. Very vertical orientation, but nice and soft, a nice animation to it. I'll start with overlay. It's my favorite mode to start out with. And see its effect on these bars. Now it's a bit strong, so I hit T for opacity. Back it off a little bit to where it's something a bit more subtle of a mix, right around there. And now we have the scene with a little bit more coloration and a little bit more play going on across the bars. A little bit of light, a little bit of shadow, rather than it being perfectly stark and even for the entire pullback. Overlay is a good starting point, but since this is a predominantly dark clip, I'll try something like color dodge. I'll increase its amount so you can see what it's doing. I'll RAM preview. And now you can see where we get some nice animated light and shadows happening on these metal bars without really altering the clip or just enhancing the clip. Now this is a pretty subtle application. Let's look at another inherently unexciting shot. A finger on a mouse. I play through. There's not a lot going on in this shot, just some very subtle finger movement. You have a chance of losing the attention of your viewer. So let's go ahead and enhance it. Here's one clip I might use. It's a relatively dark shot, but it just has little sparkles and flashes of light. Just little bits of things to add interest. Now since it's a predominantly dark shot, I'll go for the add or screen modes as my starting point. Add mode looks like that. The orange spots are pretty hot. Maybe I'll try something more subtle like screen mode. And if necessary, back off the opacity to just a bit of a highlight. Let's try and preview this. And now we have a scene that just has some nice subtle light play, something to keep the viewer's interest, but does not distract from the overall point of the shot, the finger on the mouse. Let's try another clip. Now here's a clip that has a lot of sharpness in it, which may seem to break one of our cardinal rules. On the other hand, the reason I chose this clip is it has a nice, strong diagonal orientation. Just like this scene is very diagonal, the way that the chord's coming into the scene, the way the fingers are going out of the scene, I've picked a lighting layer that also has a similar orientation. Again, it's a predominantly dark layer, so I'm going to pick something like an add or screen mode. Add adds very sharp lights. Now you've got something that's very high-tech, very spacey, adds a bit strong. You can do something like screen, which is less obvious. There's that previewed. If necessary, you can back off the opacity, shift the color, or even better, maybe blur the scene a little bit so it's not quite as obvious. And again, in a later movie, we'll show how to apply effects like blurs to enhance footage like this. Now, like I said, this is pretty sharp, and that's about as far as I might want to push it. Remember this clip I pointed out earlier where I said that this may be a bit too fast and it may be a bit too sharp? Let's go ahead and try it out. I'm going to apply an overlay mode, RAM preview, and you can see where it's just too interesting. There's too much going on. These lighting clips should be subtle. In this case, this lighting clip is so interesting, it's overwhelming the subject of our original footage. You can go ahead and try backing off the opacity, you can try blurring it out, but by the time you do that, you're just not adding much to the scene anymore. You're better off adding a softer clip, such as this one, that's just adding subtle lighting effects to your footage. If you'd like to see some more examples, the next movie contains 4 more scenarios to give you a better idea of how to best pick a lighting clip to enhance different types of underlying footage. If you think you've got the basic concept down now, you can skip the next movie. The movie after that shows you how to make your own lighting clips using turbulent or fractal noise, and then the last set of movies shows you how to enhance the lighting clip to better match the color and the arrangement of your underlying footage. So let's go!